Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Parama Gurubhyo Namaha, Asmat Sarva Gurubhyo Namaha. So today we're going to start the fifth Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa. And from the fifth Vilasa to about the eighth Vilasa, we have some complicated ritualistic matters which come up. The worship of the individual deity of Krishna is going to be described in detail. So we may have some points that we have to go over in detail, and so we can do that as we go along. So let's have a look at the text, and let's just start. So fifth Vilas, just like all the other chapters of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, starts with a Mangalacharana sloka which praises Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. Because, of course, as we remember, Hari Bhakti Vilasa was written on the order of Chaitanya Mahaprabhu. He gave that order to write the book to Sanatana Goswami, and so Gopal Bhatta Goswami and Sanatana Goswami wrote the book on his order. So in the first verse of each chapter, which is like a Mangalacharanam, which is like a praise of Sri Chaitanya. Normally, what the author Gopal Bhatta Goswami will do is he'll incorporate the subject of the particular chapter in the Mangalacharanam. So let's see. So he says in the fifth Vilas, text 1, I worship Sri Chaitanya. No. I worship Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, by whose mercy even an ignorant person can surpass by means of worshipping the Lord. So this is the subject matter of this particular Vilas. By means of worshipping the Lord, the ocean of conclusive truth that is filled with formidable aquatic animals, such as crocodiles in the form of unauthorized opinions. So it's very interesting. So he is giving an analogy here that there are different opinions about worshiping the Lord and about how to worship the Lord, but the unauthorized opinions, the wrong opinions, they're like crocodiles in the ocean. But by the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we can cross over that ocean full of unauthorized opinion crocodiles, and we can actually reach the other side, and we can learn the proper method of worship of the Lord. So it's interesting that he starts out by saying that there are many unauthorized opinions about worship, and therefore we should take the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, and with the mercy of Lord Chaitanya, we will get all the proper opinions. Okay, so continuing on. So now the process of deity worship, according to the opinion of Krama Dipika, while following the prescribed rules, while chanting the 18-syllable mantra of Sri Gopal Dev, is being described. So here in the second verse, he's saying that he's reiterating the fact that we are going to use that 18-syllable mantra, which was discussed in the second Vilas, along the first Vilas and the second Vilas, which was given in initiation to the Gaudiya Vaishnava. At the time of initiation, the Guru imparts the 18-syllable mantra, and that 18-syllable Gopal mantra is then used by the initiate to perform ritualistic worship of the Lord in the deity form. So that he explains that the form of worship that he's going to elaborate on here is according to the Krama Dipika, and the Krama Dipika once again was written by a great Nimbarkacharya called Keshava Kashmiri, or Keshavacharya of Kashmir, and it specifically if you go through it, it specifically uses this 18-syllable mantra and some variations of the 18-syllable mantra for the worship of Lord Krishna. So then, continuing to the third verse, it says, Brahmanas should always engage in deity worship according to the rules and regulations prescribed in the Tantras. And in this book, the process of deity worship will be described mostly according to the opinion of the Tantras. So here we can see that the word Tantra is not actually, it's not actually the same as the Sanskrit in the verse. What is it? It says Agama Uktena. Agama Uktena is Agama Uktena Margena. Margena means the Marga is the path. It means by the path, right? Agama Uktena, which is spoken of in the Agamas. Okay, so the word Agama here is being translated by the translator as Tantra. So this is correct. The word Agama, the word Tantra are synonymous. They mean the same thing. But basically, many times when we hear about Vaishnava worship, we hear about different agamas like Vaikanasa Agama and Pancharatra Agama. So the Pancharatra Agama is also called, can also be called Pancharatra Tantra or Vaishnava Tantra. And therefore, the word Tantra means a way of worshipping him. So Tantrayate, to attain him. So this word Tantra is correct, correctly being used here. And it says that that Brahmins should do that, should worship the Lord according to the tantric method. Now, if we read the Bhagavatam in the 11th canto, 27th chapter, which is Lord Krishna's instructions on deity worship, Lord Krishna himself says that there are three ways of worshiping him. There's the Vedic way, using Vedic mantras. There's the tantric way, which we're hearing about here. And then there's a mixed way. There's a way which is mixed Vedic and tantric. So we're going to find in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we're going to find quotations from, we're going to find some Vedic mantras. We're going to find some tantric mantras from tantras or agamas, right? And we're even going to find some quotes from Puranas. And we're going to see that these are all considered to be different methods to worship the Lord. So whereas the Bhagavatam talks about three methods, the Vedic, the tantric, and the mixed, here in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we're going to find more than three methods are mentioned. Okay, so we'll continue on. But he is proposing that the tantric method is a better method, is a good method to use. So text number 4, he's quoting from Vishnu Yamala. Vishnu Yamala is a tantra. It's a tantra dealing with the worship of Vishnu. So he says in Satya Yuga, right? If we look up here, it starts out, it says Krite Shruti. Krite Shruti. Shruti means the Vedas, and Krite means in Krita Yuga or Satya Yuga, right? Then it's got Tretayam, Dwapare, Kalavi. It's got all the different ages in there. So in Satya Yuga, the rules and regulations were based on the Vedas. Okay, so in Treta Yuga, which is the next yuga after Satya, right? It's interesting, these words Satya, Treta, or Satya or Krita, Treta, Dwarpa, and Kali. And sometimes we look at these words and we see Dwa. We see the word Dwa means two, and Tre means three. And we think, why does 3 become before 2? But actually, the word is Treta, Traita, and Dwa Apara. Means Treta means the one before 3, and Dwarpa means the one after 2. So the one before 3, it's funny that the yugas are stated like this. Treta means the one before 3. Dwarpa means the one, Dwapara means the one after 2. So the one after 2 is 3. The one before 3 is 2. So we don't know why the ages are named like this. But in any case, the first age is Satya Yuga. the golden age. Then we have the silver age, Treta. The Dwarpa age is the copper age, and the iron age, or the last age, is the Kali Yuga. And they're also, sometimes people compare them to seasons, being spring, summer, autumn, or winter, or fall, and then winter. But the thing is, of course, in the Vedic system of calendar, there are actually six seasons in the year, so of 2 months each. So anyway, that's all aside. Getting aside from that, in Satya Yuga, the rules and regulations were based on the Vedas. In the next Yuga, in the Treta Yuga, they were based on the Shmriti literature. Now, the Shmriti literature, usually they're described that there are 18 Smritis, like Manusmriti, Parasara Smriti, Yajnavalkya Smriti. There's different types of Smritis. And actually, if we read the Parasara Smriti, it says that Parasara Smriti is actually meant for Kali Yuga. But anyway, here it says in Dwarpa Yuga, the regulations are based on the Shmriti. Now, the Shmriti here doesn't just mean the Dharma Shastras. It also means the Puranas and all other literature. So there's whatever is not Vedic literature. The Vedas are made up of the Brahmanas and the Samhitas and the Aranyakas and the Upanishads. So there's Shruti literature, there's Vedic literature, and then there's non-Vedic literature. Normally in Sanskrit, we refer to the Vedic literature as Shruti and the non-Vedic literature as Smriti. Shruti means that which was heard, because it was gotten by the sages in their meditation. They intuited it, right? It's an eternal thing. It was never authored by anybody. And the Shmriti was remembered. The word Shru means to hear, and Shmri means to remember. Shmarti means to remember. So that which is remembered and written down by other people. So all the Shmritis are authored. So, okay, so we have, first of all, the Vedas in Satya Yuga. Then second of all, in Treta Yuga, the Shmriti literature. And another set of terms that are used for Vedas and non-Vedas. The Vedas are called Nigama, and the non-Vedas are called Agama. Okay, so once again, we have that word Agama or Tantra. Okay, so then, but here we should not exactly equate Shmriti with Agamas or Puranas, because the Agamas and the Puranas are going to be spoken of next. So in the Dwapara Yuga, the method of deity worship was based on the Puranas. So we can read it. There are many Puranas, especially the Sattvic Puranas. There are 18 Puranas, which are 17 of which were authored by Vedavyas, and one of them by his father. The Vishnu Purana was authored by Parasara Rishi, who was the father of Vedavyas. So these 18 Puranas are divided up into 3 sets of 6, and each set of 6 is considered to be influenced by a particular mode of nature. So there's goodness, passion, and ignorance, sattva, rajas, and tamas. These are the 3 modes of nature, or 3 gunas. And so there are Puranas in the mode of in the mode of goodness. There are sattvic Puranas. In the mode of passion, there are rajasic Puranas, and the mode of ignorance, tamasic Puranas. So mostly it's the Vaishnavas we consider more important the sattvic Puranas. But in any case, if we look through all the Puranas, there are also methods of deity worship and methods of worship, and even methods of performing different ceremonies like samskaras and even fire ceremonies and so many things, yagas. Okay, so in Dwapara Yuga, all the rules and regulations for ritualism were based on the Puranas. And most importantly, now we come to Kali Yuga, because we live in Kali Yuga. So in Kali Yuga, they're based on the Agamas. So once again, this verse is from Vishnu Yamala. So this is the proof. If anybody asks you, what type of worship should we be doing today? We can say, well, if you live in Satya Yuga, you should do Vedic worship. If you live in, Treta Yuga, Smriti worship. If you live in Dwapara Yuga, you should do Puranic worship. In Kali Yuga, you should stick to the Agamas or the Tantras, the Vaishnava Agamas and Tantras, and that's the type of worship that you should perform. And that pramana, or that proof, is coming from Vishnu Yamama. So continuing on with text 5, right? It says brahmanas, brahmanas meaning, the intellectual, the priestly class of a person, born in Kali Yuga are impure, just like Sudras. So it's very, very clear here. Ashuddha, Ashuddhaha, Sudra Kalpa, right? Those born in Kali Yuga are just like Sudras. They're just like Sudras. Okay? Brahmanaha.
Just one question. This Vishnu Yamala, is this Vishnu Yamala a very known text?
I think I have a copy somewhere. We can look it up if you want to see, if you want to have it. I don't know that it's translated into any languages, but definitely we can see if we can find the original Vishnu Yamala Sanskrit. Of course, when we're looking for quotes, when there are different quotes given from different scriptures, when we go to that scripture, the modern edition or the edition that's available now may or may not have this quote, because sometimes when things are written down on palm leaves in different manuscripts, sometimes things get left out, sometimes things get added in. So sometimes we find it hard to find exact quotes in the scriptures that are there in the form that they're in today. But certainly we can do that for all the scriptures that he quotes. We can go and we can check if those quotes are still available in the form of the scriptures that we have today. So what I'll do is I can find. I think I have Vishnu Yamala. I'm pretty sure I have a Rudra Yamala. I'm not sure if I have a Vishnu Yamala, but if I can find the Vishnu Yamala, I'll definitely pass it on and you can have a look at it.
I'm just thinking because this is such an important statement here. And
there's many important statements. And Gopal Bhatta, of course, all the acharyas, when they say something, they want to back it up with some older scripture. And sometimes we find the quote, sometimes we don't find the quote. But in any case, for Gaudiya Vaishnavas, Hari Bhakti Vilasa will be accepted, whether or not they can find Vishnu Yamala or not find Vishnu Yamala. The word of Gopal Bhatta Goswami writing this mantra there, that'll be accepted.
Right.
So it's interesting because there is a certain difference between, as I said, between what is said in the Bhagavatam by Lord Krishna and what is said here. Krishna in the Bhagavatam. Now, Krishna, of course, was speaking at the time when Krishna appeared. That was in the Dwapara Yuga. So, in the Dwapara Yuga, according to this verse, he should be worshiping according to the Puranas, right? According to this verse. So it doesn't. I can explain both of these as being factual and not being contradictory. The way that I will explain these to be non-contradictory, how I'll rationalize these both as being correct, both these statements, is that here in the Vishnu Yamala it says in Dwapara Yuga you have to perform worship according to the Puranas. And then in the Puranas, which meaning in the Bhagavad Purana, in the Bhagavatam, in the 11th canto, 27th chapter, as I said, Lord Krishna himself says, right, you can do Vedic worship, you can do tantric worship, or you can do mixed worship. So if we follow the rule of the Purana given by Lord Krishna himself in Dwapara Yuga, is that you can do Vedic worship, you can also do tantric worship, you can also do both mixed, right? So it seems contradictory because here the Vishnu Yamala said you should do Vedic worship only in Satyuga. Satyuga is the time we should do Vedic worship. But Krishna in the Bhagavatam says You can worship me by the Vedic methods. So if we worship Krishna by the Puranic method, according to what Krishna said in the Bhagavatam, we can also worship him with Vedic mantras, right? So it's an interesting, I mean, people can argue about it whether you can use Vedic mantras or not use Vedic mantras in Kali Yuga, and that's why the next statement becomes important, because what he's going to do here is he's going to, after he says that we should worship we should use the Agamas and we should not use the Vedas or the Smriti or the Puranas, because we're living in Kali Yuga. So then in the next statement, he says clearly that the reason is because we know in the Shastras it says that the Brahmanas are like Sudras in Kali Yuga, and Sudras shouldn't use Vedas. They shouldn't. In fact, the Smritis also, even Manusmriti, is forbidden for Sudras to read Manusmriti. So there are many works. There are some works which are forbidden to the lower class, and in general, all these works would be in Sanskrit anyway. So it's not normal that Sudras would know Sanskrit, because they wouldn't go to the Gurukul and they wouldn't study Sanskrit. So they would not. The Sudras and the ladies would actually be speaking some other language. There are many plays in Sanskrit when they have Sudra characters and when they have female characters. The male characters who are of upper class will be speaking Sanskrit, and when they speak to those other characters who are non-Brahmins, Kshatriyas, and Vaishyas, or not male, Trivarnikas, right? They'll speak to them in a different language. Normally, it'll be Prakrit. Prakrit is a type of Sanskrit which is like Sanskrit baby talk, or it's Sanskrit slang, and therefore they talk to them like that, because that was more the common language. In Sanskrit, the word Sanskrit itself means refined or elaborated. So you don't expect the lower classes, the uneducated classes, to speak a refined language. And there are many countries today that have differences in language too. There is more scholarly language which is used, and in India it's like that too. You have Brahmin Tamil and you have non-Brahmin Tamil. You have a difference between in Bengali, because we're talking about Gaudiya Vaishnavism. You have Sadhu Bhasha and Chalit Bhasha. You have a very high class Bengali, and then you have the Bengali of the street people. The Bengali, very common Bengali. So it's not exactly two different languages, Sanskrit and Prakrit, but it's it's more refined. So here the point is that there's a very common rule that Sanskrit, or specifically Vedic Sanskrit, is forbidden for the ladies and the Sudras to hear or to speak. So his point here is that the Brahmins in Kali Yuga are sort of a very low class and impure because of the nature of the age, and therefore they're just like Sudras. And since Sudras don't use Vedic mantras, Sudras and ladies don't use Vedic mantras according to some Smriti rules, right? But we can discuss whether that's applicable today, whether we can allow ladies and Sudras to, because today we don't really have a Varnashram society anywhere. Even in India, it's not being practiced properly. So whether all these rules, these small rules of Varnashrama, still are useful today, that's another discussion. But if we're going to go by the rules, if we're going to go by the exact rules of the Varnashram system, the Brahmanas who are born in Kali Yuga, they're just like Sudras, or sometimes they're considered to be like Brahma Bandhus or fallen Brahmins. They should become purified by following rules and regulations that are prescribed in the Agamas, because they cannot achieve the same result by following Vedic rules and regulations. So they're going to have they have a choice. Of course, they can follow Vedic rules and regulations, or they can follow the agamas, is what he's saying. But they're going to attain much greater success if they follow the agamas in Kali Yuga, because the nature of the Brahmin in Kali Yuga is that he's like a Sudra. So if he tries, for instance, if you try to do things in a Vedic way, you have to use Vedic mantras, and Vedic mantras are much more difficult to pronounce because of swaram and the different tonal intonations, and they have to be pronounced exactly. If there's a mistake, then it makes a big offense, and so therefore there are so many reasons why we can follow the agamas or the tantras instead of following the Vedas today. Now, it doesn't mean that we can't incorporate today Vedic mantras. We can. As Lord Krishna says in the Bhagavatam, we can incorporate Vedic mantras into our style of worship. Or we don't have to. Also, we don't have to. So anyway, his point is here that one of the reasons why we follow the agamas or we follow the tantras today in Kali Yuga is because even the high-class people, the Brahmins in Kali Yuga, are considered to be like Sudras. That's his point. So continuing on, he's going to start to explain about the worship. So he's going to explain, first thing he's going to explain is Dwar Puja. Dwar Puja means that we're going to do some type of worship at the door of the temple, or perhaps in the house. We could even do it at the door to the temple room if we have a special room for doing the puja. Sometimes in the house, that room is the kitchen. Because sometimes there's just a very small shrine which is kept by Vaishnavas in the kitchen. In South India, that's called a koil alwar. Just a small cupboard with some deities or a shalagram, and the Brahmin is offering his food there, like that. And the reason why it's put in the kitchen is because so that the food doesn't have to go through any other rooms where it might be seen by somebody else before it's offered. So they always have the koil alwar in the kitchen, or they have a separate room in the house for the puja, for puja room, like that. But in the temple, there's also a gate. So here specifically, we're probably talking about the temple type of worship. So, but we can extrapolate and we can use the different things the different rituals that we're going to learn about. We can also use them in the house, and we can use them in the temple. In Hari Bhakti Vilasa, they haven't made a specific difference in the procedure for worshiping in the temple or worshiping in the house. So we're just going to go through one set of rituals, how to worship, and you can use it for the house, you can use it for the temple. There's no distinction being made. Whereas in South India, for instance, especially in Sri Sampradaya, there's a big difference between temple worship and house worship as far as the rituals are concerned. Okay, so and also the complexity, we can cut the complexity down for the home worship, though, if we want to. So the first thing that's going to be talked about is going to the temple. And so when we go to the temple, we have to enter the temple. Now, the door here, it's not clear exactly. It's not clear exactly what door we're talking about. Are we talking about the outer door of the temple, or are we talking about the door to the deity room? So that we're not quite sure of, but let's go on and see what he says. So he says, after completing the worship of the spiritual master. So remember, in the fourth Vilasa, it was mentioned that we should first worship the spiritual master, and there's different ways to do that. But here it seems like even before we approach the Lord, or before we go to the temple or to go into the deity room, the worship of the Guru should be done. So there's different ways to worship the Guru. Of course, we can worship the Guru with all the different paraphernalia that we also worship the Lord with. Of course, if we have a separate set of paraphernalia that we worship the Guru with, or we can worship the Guru within the mind by meditation, or we can simply do, I think I was mentioning in the previous discussion about Guru Parampara Sandhanam, where we meditate upon the whole Guru Parampara like that and offer our obeisances to each one and beg them to give us permission to worship the Lord. So anyway, so after completing the worship of the spiritual master, which we talked about in a previous session, right? Which is important because we want to get the approval of the spiritual master and the permission of the spiritual master to engage in the worship of Lord Krishna. One should worship the demigods. Okay, so the demigods, in this case, we're talking about the demigods that have to do with the door, the entrance to the temple. So who are present in the entrance of Sri Krishna's temple, right? By offering padya, sandalwood paste flowers, and other items. So here in the actual Sanskrit, we have, it says, it's the Sri Krishna Dwara, right? So the door of Krishna, Krishna's door. Devebhyo means those devas, right? Datva, that means we should offer after having offered, right? And padyadikam. Padyadikam means beginning with padya. So what is padya? Padya is water for washing the feet. So normally we have three or four different types of water that we're offering. There's water that is used for washing the feet. There's water that's used for washing the mouth, right? Padya is for washing the feet. Washing the mouth, that water is called achmana or achmaniya. Then we have arghya. Arghya water is normally used for washing the hands, cleaning the hands, or it can also be used for sprinkling on top of the deity or sprinkling on top of the head of the deity, like that. So that is called arghya. Arghya is just it's water which is offered when we do Sandhya Vandanam. We offer arghya to the sun. We offer water through our palms to the sun. We offer graha tarpana to different planets and to different forms of upavyuha forms of Lord Vishnu, Keshava to Damodar. So we're offering tarpana. That's also a type of arghya, where we offer water for the use of a guest. So the idea of arghya is that when a guest comes, you offer him some water. What he does with the water is up to him. He can, if he feels hot, he can sprinkle it on his head. If he feels he needs to wash his hands, he can wash his hands with it. Okay, so arghya has some different uses. Sometimes we take the arghya and we put it around the plate, which is called parisechanam, before we eat the meal. So we also use the arghya water in the deity worship for putting around the plate before offering the food to Krishna. So arghya water can be used for several different things, whereas padya water is specifically for washing the feet, and achmana water is specifically for drinking or for taking into the mouth, washing the mouth. Okay, so those are the three types. Then there's a fourth type of water, of course, called shnani water, which is used for bathing the deity or bathing the shalaga. Okay, so there are these different types of waters. So, but what it says here is it just says padyadika, padya, beginning with padya. Okay, so now then in the next line it says ganda pushper. So ganda means sandalwood paste. We make paste by taking sandalwood and putting some water or some rose water or some just plain water, and sometimes maybe mixing with camphor also, and rubbing it against a stone and making this paste. And this is an auspicious paste that if we add camphor, it cools. If we add saffron, it heats. We can put it on the body of the deity, and the body of the deity gets some change in temperature. It cools the body of the deity or it heats the body of the deity, as depending on what we put in it, like that. So it's just applied to it. It's a type of ointment or type of cosmetic which is offered to the deity, like that. So it's called
Swami.
Yeah.
Swami, there is also the word chandan. So what is the difference between chandan and ganda?
They may be synonymous, they may be equal, but then there may be some definition of ganda. The word ganda also means smell, so there should be a good smell. In Hari Bhakti Vilasa, it also mentions that you can take tulsi. You can take tulsi, or you can take other woods. Yeah, but other auspicious woods, and you can grind them and make paste from them. Tulsi paste can also be called ganda, but we can't call tulsi paste as chandana. Chandana is a specifically sandalwood paste, let's say. But ganda may be a type of unguent or ointment made of maybe some other thing. And ganda also may be, as I say, it may also include mixing in camphor or mixing in saffron or some other thing like that. So normally when we use the word ganda, we're talking about the mixture of sandal paste with camphor, maybe aguru oil, or whatever it is. It's a specific thing. Whereas when we say chandana, we just mean sandalwood paste. But they're synonymous because in some texts, in some ritual texts, it'll use the word chandana, and other texts it'll use the word ganda. But the people who perform the worship according to those texts they'll both be grinding the sandalwood paste and adding camphor and adding aguru. So so when they see chandana, they think ganda. When they see ganda, they think chandana. But if you want to be very specific about it, right? Chandana refers to sandalwood. It can't refer to anything else. But if you wanted to make tulsi into a paste, you could say, oh, that's tulsi chandana. Okay, it's tulsi chandana. But really, when we enumerate, when we tell all the different items that we're going to offer in puja, because usually there are 16 different items or 16 different types of services that we offer to the deity. These are called upacharas or services, and one of them is ganda, but it's not usually mentioned in the verses as chandana. It is chandana, but it's not when we list it as they've done here. They're listing different things that have to be offered. So when padya is an upachara, pushpa is an upachara, ganda is an upachara, but you don't normally find them saying chandana as an upachara. So it's just not used. That word chandana is not used here because it's a list of articles, and it's not usually used in a list like that. But we can say, in general, they're the same thing. In general, they're the same thing. There's a slight difference in meaning if you want to get very technical, like that. But as I said, most people are not technical about the use of this word, these two words. They use them interchangeably. Yeah. So it's just like the word Lakshmi and Sri Devi. Sri Devi is Lakshmi. Lakshmi is Sri Devi. How is there? If we want to go into the etymological meaning of Sri, it means certain things. The etymological meaning of Lakshmi, it means certain things which are slightly different. But for all general purposes, Sri Devi and Lakshmi are the same. Ganda and Chandana are the same. So we have Padya mentioned here, we have Ganda mentioned here, we have Pushpa mentioned here. Pushpa means flowers. And there's going to be the seventh Vilasa of Hari Bhakti Vilasa is going to be all about flowers, leaves, different types of grasses, what kind of flowers that can be offered, what kind should not be offered, etc. Like that. Because Lord Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita, he says in the 9th chapter, Patram Pushpam Palam Toyam, offer to me a fruit, a flower, a leaf, and some water. So the question comes, if Krishna says he wants you to offer him fruits and flowers and leaves, what kind of leaves, what kind of fruits, what are the fruits that he wants, what are the fruits that he doesn't want, what are the leaves that he likes, what are the leaves that he doesn't like, right? And what types of water do we offer? These different waters that we were talking about, Padya, Agya, Achmana, they are also going to be, there's different things which are going to be put in these waters. They're just not plain water. You can use plain water, or you can use water mixed with tulsi leaves or something like that if you don't have some other items. But there are actually certain spices and certain ingredients, what we call samagris, ingredients that go into these different types of water. And as I said, the different types of water have different uses for washing the feet, for washing the mouth, for washing the hands or the head, or for bathing. Okay. So all of these things are going to be elaborated on. Like it's going to explain all those things. But right now, what he's doing is he's just saying, he's talking about Dwara Puja, and he's saying the reason I have to start talking about the details is because he's starting to talk about worship. So we're going to have to explain what worship means. Right. So it says here, yata stanam, yata kramam. So yata kramam means according to the method one after another. There's a method of offering these services, these worship services, and they come in a certain order. And the traditional order is, padya, argya, achavaniya, like this. There's a particular order that should be followed. So yata kramam, there's a specific order. If we do a different order, that's not correct, right? And that's considered to be what we call a seva aparad, or an offense if we go out of order, if we do something out of order, right? And yatastanam, we have to offer the worship in a particular place. We've already said that the place is the door, we're going to worship at the door. But where on the door? There's different parts of the door. If we look at a door, there's the bottom part of the door, there's the sides of the door, and there's the top of the door, what we call the lintel. So there are different devatas, there are different personalities who are associates of the Lord, right? Who are connected with the worship of Krishna, who have to be propitiated and worshipped in different parts of the door. So all of that's going to be explained. Okay, so so it says to do that. So we have this padya. What's mentioned here is padyadika. So padyadika or padyadi means beginning with padya. So usually when we say beginning with padya, we mean the offering of the different types of water, and we mean padya, argya, achimana, and shnaniya. These are the 4 types of water, right? So it's also interesting because we could say argyadi. In sometimes specifically in Sri Vaishnava texts, you'll see argyadi, because the Sri Vaishnavas in the Pancharatra Agamas, they tend to first of all offer argya, then padya, whereas in the Gaudiya Padhatis and in many other Padhatis, many other Vaishnava Sampradaya Padhatis, we see they offer padya first. So when it says down here yathakramam, there's a particular sequence of services that are offered, and that sequence may be slightly different according to the Sampradaya or according to the book that you're according to the Tantra that you're following, the Agama that you're following. Okay, so here the Agama is telling us to do padya first, starting with padya. Okay, so and then it also mentions ganda and pushpa. It mentions flowers and it mentions sandal paste, right? Normally, when we worship, when we offer flowers, we can offer a flower, or we can offer flower petals, or we can offer flower garlands. We can offer different types of flowers, and we can also offer the paste, the sandal paste. It can be that it's normally either dipped in a flower is normally dipped in it, or a flower petal is dipped in it, and then we offer it to the deity, to the feet of the deity, or to the hand of the deity, to different parts of the deity. So okay, so now. The other thing here is that this is also indicative. It indicates a very simple type of puja. It's not mentioning here to offer 16 articles of worship. It's not 16 services. It's not the sodasa upachara, right, type of worship. It's indicating a very preliminary type of worship before we go through the door, right? And it's going to be simple. Now, in ritual texts, normally that type of puja is called sometimes pancha puja. And pancha puja involves pancha upacharas, not 16 services, but 5 services. And what are they? They are ganda, pushpa, dupa, deepa, naivedya. Ganda, pushpa, dupa, deepa, naivedya. Right? Now, ganda means a sandal paste, pushpa meaning flower, dupa meaning incense, deepa meaning a lamp, a light, and naivedya meaning some food item, like that. Because he has used here the word padyadika, right? Because he's used the word here padyadika, he also means a more elaborate thing, more elaborate than that. Because we see in the normal, very simple worship, No padya, no argya, no achmana is mentioned. It's not mentioned. It's just ganda, pushpa, dupa, deepa, naivedya. That's very simple worship. So some people will say, okay, you should just do panchupachara here. But the fact is, because he showed in the second line padyadika, we can't offer that. It can't be that simple. It has to be a little bit more elaborate. Okay, so there are different numbers of services that are offered, but here we can see that it says padyadika, so it means offering of the different waters, and it also says the ganda and the pushpa. We don't see any mention of other items, but we can imagine that there would be other items. Now, these other items can be like naivedya, a bhoga offering, or incense or lamp or something like that. They can be offered, or they can be offered in the mind. So because this is a very preliminary puja, we don't want to make it too complicated, because we'll never get into the temple. We'll never get to worship the main deity, Krishna. So we want to make it simple, and we want to get it done quickly, but we want to make it complete. So according to Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we should definitely offer the waters like Padyargya, etc., Achmana, and we should also offer Ganda and Pushpa, like that. So exactly how to do this type of worship is not being given, but the pramana is given that you should offer these particular services. Okay, so let's continue on, see if he gives some more details, and maybe we look at the commentary, and maybe it'll give some more details in the commentary. We could actually do that. Why don't we just do that right now? So we're looking at the commentary by Sanatana Goswami, Digdarshini Tika, on the 6th verse of the 5th chapter of Hari Bhakti Vilasa, and it mentions here a couple of mantras. It says that you should worship the Dwar Devatas, or any Devatas, with a mantra starting with Omkara and ending with Namaha, and then taking the name of the particular deity of the door and putting it in the dative case. And so it gives an example here. It says Shri, or you must say Om, of course, first. Om Shri Krishna Dwara Devatabhyo Namaha. Dwara Devatabhyo Namaha would be combining all of the devatas, all the entities that we have to worship at the door of Krishna. So Om Shri Krishna Dwar Devatabhyo Namaha, and then it says to offer padya, argya, etc. Argya wasn't mentioned in the original mantra, but in the commentary it mentions also argya, and then gandhadi bihi, and also sandal paste and other upacharas. Then it also says in there you can use the phrase saparivarebhyaha Shri Krishna Parsharebhyo Namaha. So also saparivarebhya means and the associates, with the associates, right? Shri Krishna Parsharebhyo, Krishna's Parshadas, Krishna's associates, the attendant deities to Lord Krishna, or the friends of Lord Krishna who are being associates of Lord Krishna that are also being worshipped, like that. Okay. So exactly the procedure, the prayoga, or the actual procedure for how to worship the deities at the door are not exactly given. But let's continue on. Maybe we'll get some more. I'm pretty sure in the next sloka we're going to get some more details about this. So it says, first one should worship Krishna's associates in the space in front of the entrance to the temple. So Dwara Agre means in front of the door, right? Or it could mean at the foot of the door, right? On the bottom part of the door. Saparivaran, the associates. Bhupite. Bhupite means, normally would mean, as I said, in the earth. Bhu means earth, and the pite means the place, or the altar, or the place, the pedestal. Yeah. So Krishna Prasadan, Krishna Parsadan, not Prasadan. Parsadan means the Parshadas of Krishna are Krishna's associates. Tadagre Garudan Dwarasya Urdve Dvara Shriyam Yajit. Okay, so then also you have to worship Garuda, and you have to worship Goddess Lakshmi, who is on the top part of the door. So we also know that the door of Lord Vishnu, has got some gatekeepers. So on the gatekeepers, we've heard of Jaya and Vijaya, right? So there are actually 8 gatekeepers because there are 4 doors. There's 4 doors in the different directions of Vaikuntha. So we have Bala Prabala, Data Vidata, Jaya Vijaya, and Chanda and Prachanda, like this, in different directions. Okay, so it says here in the 7th verse, first one should worship Lord Krishna's associates in the space in front of the entrance to the temple. Then one should worship Garuda as being situated in front of the Lord's associates. Now, normally, if it's a temple door, inside the temple door, there'll be Garuda. Garuda will be the carrier of the Lord, the carrier of Lord Krishna, or the carrier of Lord Vishnu is in front of the deity, facing the deity in the temple, in the temples of Vishnu. So in this case, we don't know exactly whether this is the outside door or the inside door of the Garbhagriha, but of the deity room. So, but in any case, they have to worship Garuda, the carrier of the Lord, and then worship Lakshmi, who presides over the entrance. She's on the top of the entrance like that. If we look at it also gives some more explanation in the commentary. It talks about Chandadi. Chandadi means the Dwarapalakas, or the security guards at the different gates, at the different doors. Chanda, Prachanda are the ones that are at the door which we usually go into, right? Which is the eastern gate. So it mentions in the commentary, it mentions the mantras for them. Chanda Prachandabhyam Namaha. And this is a combined Mula mantra. What do we mean by Mula mantra? Mula mantra, the word Mula means a text or a root text, a basic text by which a deity is addressed. So for instance, if I have a friend Krishnadas and I want to call him to take lunch with me, I'll just yell out, "Oh Krishnadas, please come here, please come for lunch," like that. So in the same way, when we offer different services to a deity, then we first of all, or either first or last, there's different ways of doing it. We will use the Mula mantra of the deity, we'll use the root mantra of a particular deity to offer a particular service to that deity. So for instance, there are 2 ways we can say for instance, with this padyam, this water for washing the feet, if I want to offer water for washing the feet to a particular deity, then I can say etat padyam. Etat padyam. Etat means this. The verb to be is not mentioned, is not necessary, right? It's inherently understood, right? But I can say etat padyam. I can say this is water for washing your feet, and then I can mention O Krishna, meaning I can say Klim Krishnaya Namaha, O Krishna, and that is a basic Mula mantra for Krishna is Klim Krishnaya Namaha. But in this case, for Krishna, we're using the Gopal mantra. So we would say, Etat Padyam Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. O Krishna, right? This is water for washing your feet. Now there's another way of doing that where we say the Mula mantra first, as we did in the English translation just now. And then we would say the service later. So we might say, for instance, if we're calling somebody to take prasadam or to take food, we say, dinner is ready, O Krishna. Or we could say, O Krishna, your dinner is ready. So we can say it in 2 different ways in English. In Sanskrit, we can also say it in 2 different ways. We can say etat for water for washing the feet. Etat padyam, again, is water for washing your feet. Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. Or we can say the Mula mantra first, Klim Krishnaya Govindaya Gopijana Vallabhaya Swaha. And then we can say Padyam Samarpayami. Padyam Samarpayami. Samarpayami means I offer unto you this water for washing your feet. So there's two different ways of doing that, and both these ways are mentioned in Hari Bhakti Vilasa. So there may be specific padatis that we read, specific books that are written from Hari Bhakti Vilasa to give the prayoga, the actual procedure in a cookbook fashion, step by step, to people to do the puja without trying to figure it out themselves, just giving it step by step. And they may include either the use of the Mula Mantra first and then such and such service Samarpayami, I offer to you. Or the other way around, they may say, we offer this particular service, whatever it may be, and then the Mula Mantra coming last. So as in the example I gave of Etat Padyam, like that. So there's different ways to offer these upacharas. But in any case, we should know the specific Mula Mantras or specific mantras that are used. So here, for the Dwarpalakas, for the security guards of the different gates, he's mentioned in the purport. He's mentioned Chanda Prachandabhyam Namaha. Now, Chanda Prachandabhyam, the eastern gate of Vaikuntha, has two gatekeepers called Chanda and Prachanda. On the left side of the gate is Chanda. On the right side of the gate is maybe on the right side of starting with the right side of the gate. The right side of the gate will have Chanda, and the left side will have Prachanda. Normally, when we do this type of worship of doorkeepers or anything where there's two deities on one side of the gate and the other side of the gate, normally the right side of the gate is, you start with the right side and then secondly do the left side, which is, just like when we do anything, any ritualistic thing, we normally start with the right, then the left. So for instance, when we put on tilak, we put tilak on the right first, then on the left. When we do archamana, we touch the right, then the left of different parts of the body. So the right side will normally be first. So if we say Jaya Vijaya, Jaya is on the right side, Vijaya is on the left side. So now that would be as we face the door. As we face the door, we're on the outside of the door. And Jaya is going to be on the right, Vijaya is going to be on the left. That's normally the way it's conceived of. Okay, so here he mentioned Chanda Prachandabhyam. Now that is the dual number of the Chaturthi Vibhakti or the dative case. So it's when we say Chanda Prachanda, we're only talking about one gate, and we're talking about those two particular deities, one on each side, security guards. So that's what he mentions here in this purport. Okay, so what do we get from the seventh verse again? To summarize, right? So first, one should offer worship to Krishna's associates, right? We already had a mantra for that, Krishna, Sri Krishna Parshadebhyo Namaha, or it says Saparivarebhyo, Sri Krishna Parshadebhyo Namaha. And then we're going to learn the mantras for offering the different services later. And we're going to learn actually how to offer the different services later. But so of course, some of the services will be just obvious. If we offer water for washing the feet, we either put it on the feet or we offer it near the Lord's feet, and then throw it into a throw-out pot, right, which is called a Visarjaniya Patra, right? We have to put it somewhere after we offer it. So we either put it on the feet or we put it into a Visarjaniya Patra, throw-out pot. Okay, so first of all, worship Krishna's associates in the space in front of the entrance of the temple. Then worship Garuda. It doesn't give a Mula Mantra for Garuda necessarily. Let's see. In the purport, Goswami hasn't mentioned the Mula Mantra for Garuda. Then we have to worship the associates of the Lord, like the Dwarpalakas, the security guards, and then we have to worship Lakshmi, the goddess of fortune, who is situated on top of the door frame. And the Mula Mantra for Lakshmi is usually Shrim Shriye Namaha, but it's not mentioned here. But we can find it perhaps in some other place. Okay, so now continuing on, let's get some more information about this. once we go through a few of these slokas and we get the topic incomplete, then we can take these slokas and we can take the information from the slokas and the purport, and we can actually devise a practical method of offering these this worship. So in texts 8 to 10, right? It's beginning to say here pragdvaro. Pragdvaro means the eastern gate, and in the second line it says chanda prachanda. So it mentions that chanda prachanda are in the eastern gate. It's going to mention that the placements of different devatas, of different associates of the Lord, and where they're going to be. Because remember, we in the first verse we had up there in verse 6. It mentioned yatastana. So we have to know the correct place to do the worship of each person. So, for instance, we might have a door, and we might not have a physical deity of Lakshmi on top, or the doorkeepers on either side. There might not be a physical deity of those deities. So, how do we know where to worship them? We know because they stand in a particular place. That's why it's mentioned in the 6th text here, yatastana. So we have to know the proper place, and we also have to know the proper order to worship those different deities, and we have to know the proper order of the services to offer to each deity. So that's very important, as mentioned in the 6th verse. So that's going to be explained here in the 8th to 10th verses. So some more elaboration about that. On the two sides of the eastern gate, one should worship Chanda and Prachanda. So that's also mentioned in the purport. In the commentary. On the two sides of the southern gate, one should worship Data and Vidata. On the two sides of the northern gate, one should worship Bala and Prabala. And on the two sides of the western gate, one should worship Jaya and Vijaya. So it's very interesting because the back gate of the temple is actually the gate where Jaya and Vijaya were. So if we remember back to the story, there's a story about how the Kumaras, the four sages or four rishis, brahmachari rishis, who wanted to go and see Lord Vishnu, they went to Sri Vaikuntha and they wanted to gain entrance to Sri Vaikuntha. But it's very interesting because here it's explaining that the gate that they wanted to go into was guarded by Jaya and Vijaya, the two gatekeepers. That's actually the back door. That's the back door of Vaikuntha. That's not the front door. The front door is the eastern gate. That's the back door. So it's interesting they were trying to get in the back door. Just an interesting point. Okay, so we know. So now we know if we want to go around clockwise, we go first the east, then the south, then the north, then the west. Right? That's the way we do it. If we go around clockwise. So if we're doing this puja, we're going to be performing worship of Chanda Prachanda, Data Vidata, Bala Prabala, and Jaya and Vijaya. Then we'll come back to the eastern gate and then we'll go inside. Right? So after finishing this worship, one should worship the deity who is the protector of the temple. Now let's see what that is in the actual Sanskrit. So up here, we've got an explanation in the first verse, verse 8, about Chanda Prachanda, Data Vidata, right? So it's mentioned here, Data and Vidata, right? Right, and then it's mentioned about Jaya Vijaya and Bala and Prabala, right? When it says Pravala here, it means Prabala, right? Because of, again, the B and V in Bengali is the same as in same letter, and when they put it in Sanskrit, they didn't write Prabala, they wrote Pravala. Okay, so then we have Dwandas. Okay, Vastu Purusham. The word Vastu Purusham is mentioned here. Okay, so here he's called the Vastu Purusha as the protector of the temple. Okay, the protector of the temple. So in fact, here we see that is the Vastu Purusha. Now the Vastu Purusha has a whole story about him. And if we want to know a little bit more about that story, we can look in the, I believe, Agni Purana. And in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, in the 19th Vilas, which is the chapter about the installation of the deity, it talks about worshipping of the very elaborate worship of the Vastu Purusha. But here we have a very simple worship of the Vastu Purusha. This Vastu Purusha was, according to the story in the Agni Purana, and the verses from that Agni Purana are quoted there in the 19th chapter of the Hari Bhakti Vilas. So we can be sure that this is the same Vastu Purusha as is being spoken about in Hari Bhakti Vilas, right? That Vastu Purusha is a demon who was born of the sweat of Lord Shiva. Lord Shiva was fighting some other demon, and he was sweating while he was fighting, and from his sweat came this Vastu Purusha. So the Vastu Purusha is said here, he's translated it here as a guardian or protector deity of the temple. So the Vastu Purusha actually is a guardian of the place. He's a guardian of the area, of the temple layout. And Vastu Purusha worship is most important in different architectural rituals, like building houses or building temples, or consecrating them, or renovating them, or just doing some annual worship for the deity of the particular plot of land. So anyway, the Vastu Purusha has to be worshipped. So after that, it says, Dvarantaha Parshvayo. Parshvayo means on the different sides of the door, right? Parshvayo. On the different sides, we have Ganga and Yamuna. So here we have, it says here, inside the doorway, right? Dwarantara. On the inside of the doorway, we have some other deities to be worshipped as we go through the door, or even before we go through the door, but we see them there inside the temple. And if you go to Sri Rangam temple, for instance, you will find that outside the main temple there's Giant Vijaya, or Bal and Prabala. But if you go a little further inside, you have on the inside, you have these deities Ganga and Yamuna, who are goddesses in the form of goddesses. And also by their sides, you have these other attendant deities to the Lord, called Shankanidhi and Padmanidhi. Shankanidhi and Padmanidhi. So Shanka means conch, and Padma means a lotus. So these are, not sure if they're exactly the conch and the lotus personified, but they are attendant deities of Lord Vishnu there that are inside the gate of the temple. Okay, so to summarize, let's summarize it up again. We have to worship. Who do we have to worship at the gate? We first have to worship Krishna's associates. We have to worship Garuda. We have to worship Lakshmi on the door. We have to worship the doorkeepers. There are 8 doorkeepers. We have to worship that's Chanda Prachanda, Dada Vidada, Bala Prabala, Jaya Vijaya. Then we have to worship Ganga and Yamuna, right, on the inside of the eastern gate, and Shankanidhi and Padmanidhi. Okay, so now we're going to get some more in verses 11 and 12. It's going to give us some more deities that we have to worship at the gate. Thereafter, one should worship Ganesh in the southeast corner. Right, so now remember, excuse me. So now remember, when we worship, we first worship on the right side, then worship on the left side. But in terms of different directions, we always start in the east, and then we go clockwise, which is called production in Sanskrit. We go clockwise. So when we go clockwise from the east, the first major direction we come to is the south. But in between the east and the south, there's a southeast. So we go around from the east to southeast to south to southwest to west to northwest to north to northeast and back to east. Right? That's how we go around clockwise. So Ganesha Mandir's Agni Kone. Agni Kone means the southeast. So it's the direction. Kona means a direction, or it means a point. And so Agni Kone, there's these different konas, right? So we have the main directions, which are 4, east, south, west, and north. right? So we have Purva, Purvadware, Dakshinadware, Pastimadware, Uttaradware, right? So Purvadware means the eastern gate. Dakshinadware means the southern gate. Pastimadware means the western gate. Uttaradware means the northern gate. Okay, so we have these different places. So, for instance, when somebody is doing puja, he's doing a dwar puja. Later on, if we learn how to do the puja in a mandapa or a yagashala, right? The yagashala will have these four gates. The mandapa will have these four gates, and you'll learn Purvadware, Chandam Avahyami, Prachandam Avahyami, like that. So at the eastern gate, we invoke Chanda and Prachanda. So this is the method of puja. So if we want to write a prayoga for doing this, we'll write it out fully, and we have to worship all of the different deities in the different gates. Okay. So we're going to also worship these deities in the corners too. So not just in Purvadware, Dakshinadware, Pastimadware, Uttaradware, but also in the Agni Kona, Nairitya, Vayavya, and what is the last one? Ishanya, I think. Yes, Ishanya. Ishanya and Vayavya. Vayavya and Ishanya. Okay. So it's mentioned here. They mentioned here Agni Kona, Nairitya, Vayavya, and Ishanya. These are southeast, southwest, northwest, northeast, right? So as we go around, we go east, southeast, south, southwest, west, northwest, north, northeast, and back to east, like that. And then sometimes also we have to worship up and down, because there are also up and down are also directions. So it's possible that we also have to worship, for instance, Dwar Lakshmi here, the deity of Lakshmi. Lakshmi is there on the lintel of the top of the door. So when we worship her, she is on the top of the door. She's up. She's in a Urdhva. Urdhvam Shri Mahalakshmi Namaha or Shri Shri Namaha. She's up. Okay, so thereafter, one should worship Ganesh in the southeast corner, Durga in the southwest corner, Saraswati in the northwest corner, and Shiva in the northeast corner. So it's there are traditional directions for different deities. Shiva traditionally is in the southeast. No, I'm sorry, northeast. This is incorrect. They've put here Ganesh in the southeast. That's correct. Durga in the southwest. Then continuing around, they put Saraswati in the northwest. They forgot the last one is Shiva in the northeast. So this is a mistranslation here. Okay, so northeast. After doing so, one should lightly touch. So we do all this worship. How we do the worship, exactly how we do it as a prayoga, we have to sit down and we have to write it all out. To invoke the deity, to offer the deity the different waters, Padyagya, Chmaniya, like this, to offer different Ganda, Pushpa, Dhupa, Deepa, Naivedya, like this, how to offer the different services to each deity, and how it can be done either mentally or just with mantra or even with physical offerings. We have to sit down, we have to write that all out. Okay, so after doing this, one should lightly touch the ground near the entrance and then slowly enter the temple without touching the door. So without touching the door frame, right? Placing his right foot first through the temple door or the deity room door, right? That's auspicious. And then it gives in text 13, it describes from Sharda Tilaka, which is another tantra, right? Just like we have Brahma Yamala, Vishnu Yamala, Rudra Yamala, and we have this Sharda Tilaka, which is which we actually have translated, the whole Sharda Tilaka. I think when we were discussing about initiation, we went through a whole section describing about the four. Remember when we were discussing the second Vilasa and we were talking about the Diksha ceremony, there were these four different types of initiation: the Kriyavati, the Varnamayi, the Veda Vedamai, and Kalavati, right? There were these 4 types of initiation, and they were all described in the Sharda Tilaka. So Sharda Tilaka is a common text which he quotes quite a lot. So here he's quoting again from Sharda Tilaka. It's another Tantra, right? Or Agama. And he quotes here, he says, the spiritual master should gently touch the left side of the door. That's interesting because the previous sloka we said, don't touch the door, but touch the ground near the entrance, then enter the door without touching the door. But here it says that the guru, as he's going through the door, he should touch the left side of the door and bend a little. He should bend down a little. He shouldn't walk through straight, but he should bend his head down a little bit, so as not to touch the frame of the door above his head. So the idea is, and if anybody's been to any of these ancient temples in India, you'll see that sometimes the actual door to the deity room is actually quite small, and it's not quite big enough for a person to walk through fully erect. So touching the left side of the door and crouching down just a little bit, putting your head down, which is also respectful, and then walk through the door and enter the door by placing the right foot first in. So the reason he's quoted this Sharda Tilaka thing is not specifically because to show that you can touch the door or not touch the door, but his point here is to show another pramana, another proof from Sharda Tilaka about putting the right foot first. So it says here, dakshina padam, right? So the dakshinangri, right? It says here. So putting the right foot in first. So now that we've discussed that method of entering the temple door and how we have to worship the different personalities at the door of the temple, right? So now we'll have a mahatmya, or it'll explain the glories of going into the temple, the glories of entering the temple, of entering the door of the temple, or the gate of the temple. So this is coming from a book called Hari Bhakti Sudodaya, which is it's a book about Hari Bhakti, right? And it's got some of the glories of entering the temple. So text 14 says, and I'm just looking at the commentary here for a second to see if there's any other details before we leave the Dwara Puja about exactly how to do the Dwara Puja. So I don't really see there. I mean, there is some details, but there's no more mantras that I mentioned. So okay, so let's continue on. It says a learned person who has the good fortune of entering the temple of Sri Vishnu for the purpose of worshipping the Lord with devotion will not again have to enter a prison in the form of a mother's womb. So he doesn't have to take birth again. And the womb here is given as an analogy like a prison. It's considered to be like a prison. Okay, so this is a very short Mahatmyam. Normally in Hari Bhakti Vilasa, we get long lists of slokas from different places, giving the glories of doing so many things like that. But basically, he just wants to explain to us that just by entering the temple, just by going inside the temple, passing the gate of the temple, and entering correctly with the proper attitude, right? That one will be blessed with the benediction that he doesn't have to take birth again. That's very nice. So then continuing on with text 15, it says, Atha Grihantara Puja. Grihantara Puja. So Grihantara means what we do when we enter the Griha. Now this could be the house. Griha means house, but in this case, the Griha means Garbha Griha, or the actual deity, the deity room of the Lord. So we have a temple and we have a temple gate, and then we have an actual deity house, an actual deity room where the deity is situated, which is in the inside, in the center of the temple. So Grihantara Puja means the worship as we go into the deity's actual room. So again, it's going to talk about different personalities that have to be worshipped. Within the temple, one should worship the protecting deity. Now, what is the protecting deity? Again, the protecting deity here is mentioned in the first line. It says Vastu Purusha. Vastu Purusha. So it says Nairitye Vastu Purusham Brahmanam Api Pujayet. Okay, so one should worship the Vastu Purusha, the protecting deity, and Lord Brahma in the southwest corner. In the southwest corner. Right? So we look back here and we'll see that Durga was being worshipped in the southwest corner on the outside. So the layout of temples is that there are different what we call prakaras. In a very, very elaborate temple like Sri Rangam, you have 7 walls, seven walls of a temple, and inside each wall there's a place. There's an enclosure. There's an enclosure inside of each wall. So you have 7 walls. So you're going to have 6 enclosures inside those 7 walls. If I draw 7 lines, I have 6 enclosures between the lines, like that. So you have these different enclosures. Each enclosure in a temple, in each direction and in each corner, there are different deities. So in Pancharatra, if we have a very elaborate temple, we have to worship all of the deities in all of the corners and all the directions and all the gates of all 7 enclosures. However, in a more simple temple where there's maybe 1 enclosure, here we're talking about there's 1 enclosure. There's one wall of a temple that's enclosing the courtyard, and then within the courtyard there's a deity room. So we have two gates. We have the main gate of the temple, and we have the gate to the deity room. And so there are different deities to for instance, in the sloka just before here, in the 11th sloka, it mentions to worship Durga in the southwest. But once you go inside the next enclosure, you don't worship Durga anymore in the southwest. You have to worship the Vastu Purusha. Where is it? Vastu Purusha and Lord Brahma in that place. So the deity, again, this comes back to this statement in I think the 6th sloka or 7th sloka here, where it says Yatastanam. Yatastanam. We have to know in the 6th sloka. Yatastanam. We have to know exactly where a particular personality, where a particular devata is situated in order to do the worship of that devata. We don't worship in the wrong place. So we can't make a blanket statement that we always worship Durga in the southwest. No, we worship Durga in the southwest on the outside of the deity room. But in the inside of the deity room on the southwest, we have to worship Brahma and the Vastu Purusha. The Vastu Purusha was worshipped in a different place on the outside. On the inside, he's worshipped in a different place. Okay. So continuing on. In the southwest corner, the Vastu Purusha and Brahma are worshipped. One should then sit down a little distant from the deity and worship the Lord's intimate associates. Okay, it's not exactly said how to do that. So if we look and see it doesn't seem like in the 15th in the commentary in the 15th verse it goes into much detail. But it does say later on. Okay, so no, it doesn't say that. Okay, so not exactly sure how that is done, but in any case, this is what the puja that has to be done when we go into the deity room itself. Continuing on with text 16, it says, "Tat tat 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 puja mantras choktaha." These are the mantras to be chanted in this regard. Right? So it's now going to talk about how we what mantra we use to do all these pujas. All these pujas, starting with the door puja in the beginning, right? It's going to give us and we're not sure if this comes from somewhere, this particular pramana, But this is a nice sloka that explains about these mantras. And so it says Pranavadi Chaturtyantam. So beginning with the Pranava, Omkara, and Chaturtyantam ending with the dative case, right? Devanam Namonantakam, right? Puja mantram iram proktam sarvatra archana karmani. Okay, so the mantra to be chanted for each one of these associates or servants of the Lord, right? While worshiping the Lord's associates begins with Om, follows by the name of the associate, ending in the fourth dative case, and the mantra should conclude with the word Namaha. Right, so very, very simple. So if you're going to worship, if you consider the Vastu Purusha to be an associate of the Lord, then you may say Om Vastu Purushaya Namaha. If it's Lakshmi, then it may be Om Shriye Namaha, like that. If it's Jaya, Om Jayaya Namaha, Om Vijayaya Namaha, like that. If it's Ganesha, Om Ganeshaya Namaha, like that. So Om Durgyai Namaha. So these are very simple mula mantras that we use for the worship of different deities. So continuing on, text, and I don't see that there's much more in the purport about that. Okay, so text number 17 says, thereafter one should sit in front of Sri Krishna, the deity, and seal the four directions, right, while chanting a mantra from the tantras. That is, Om Shangaya Sasaraya Hum Pat Namaha. Om Shangaya. It's not spelled correctly here. Shanga is a bow. Om Shangaya Sasaraya Hum Pat. Right? Shanga is a bow, and Saraya probably means arrows. So a bow with arrows. Hum Pat Namaha. Right. So some of these words are tantric words which don't have any real translation, but they're onomatopoeic words which have some value. The sound value is there. Hum Pat is the way to end. Hum Pat Namaha. These are all words that we end tantric mantras with. Hum Pat Namaha. So Shangaya means unto the bow. Sharaya means unto the arrows. With the bow with the arrows, right? So bow and arrow, right? These are weapons. So we mentioned it's a weapon mantra that is used. Now, sometimes in Pancharatra we'll use a Sudarshana mantra for this, right? But what are we doing here? We are sealing directions. Sealing directions means what? It means to imagine in our mind, in meditation, that we have a type of force field around us made from this particular mantra, which is a weapon mantra, like that. And this in Sanskrit is called Dig Bandaha. Dig means direction. Dig or dig means direction. And Bandaha means to close. It means to close the directions so that no external forces, that are impious forces or any forces out there can come and disturb us. So it's just like putting a force field around us, a mantra force field around us, and using the weapon mantra, Om Shangaya Sasaraya Hum Pat Namaha. And while doing this, we should throw flowers and rice paddy, or flower petals and some rice paddy, meaning normally it will be not paddy, but it'll be husked rice. It'll be what we call akshata, means whole rice. And flowers towards the different directions. So we'll throw those in all the different directions. So how many directions are there? There's 8 directions, right? So if we start from the east, so east, southeast, southwest, west, northwest, northeast, and then up and down. So these are 10 directions. Okay, so that's what will be done. So that is called Digbandaha. Now, there's another process of opening them at the end of puja. We open the directions and we put down the force field. So in the beginning we raise the shields, and at the end we lower the shields. We put up the shields, it's called Digbandaha, close the directions, and mentally and with mantra. And in the end, sometimes people they take that's called Digvimokaha. Digvimokaha means to open the directions. Okay, so is there a question? Okay, yep. So we're going to continue on. Text 18. So just to look in text 17, it did mention this mantra in the actual the mantra, because we can see. Let's have another look here. The actual mantra is not mentioned in the Mula in the original text, but in the purport by Sanatana Goswami, this mantra is mentioned. Om Shangaya Sasaraya Humpat Namaha. Okay, that's mentioned. So continuing on, it says Ata Pujarta Asanam. Pujarta Asanam means placing of the asana or the seat. There's a seat. The person who performs this worship is going to perform it, and he's going to be sitting or standing on a seat when he performs it. There's a sitting place for him to sit. And this is important to insulate the person from the ground, right? So whenever we perform worship, it's an offense actually to perform worship without sitting on a seat or standing on a seat. You should have a seat. You should have an asana according to Shastra. Okay. So it says here, before sitting, one should purify the asana while chanting Om Adara Shaktai Namaha. Om Adara Shaktai Namaha is a mantra which is used in Pita Puja, or the worship of the altar, or the worship of the pedestal on which a deity or a mandala or a kumbha, a pot, a mystic diagram or deity is standing. So that is an altar or a pedestal. The worship of that is called Pita Puja. And that Pita Puja normally starts with this mantra, Om Adara Shaktai Namaha. There are other mantras also, but this Om Adara Shaktai Namaha is a common one. So here it says you should purify the asana while chanting Om Adara Shaktai Namaha. So exactly how you purify the mantra, some people put their hand on it, some people take some water and sprinkle it on it like that, and they say Om Adara Shaktai Namaha. Yes. Okay. So then one should sit in either Padmasana or Swastikasana. So those of you who know a little bit about Hatha Yoga will know that the Padmasana is the full lotus position where the both feet are up on top of the thighs. And the Swastikasana, one foot is up and one foot is down on top of it, like that. And this is opposed to the normal way that we normally just sit down, which is called Sukhasana, where we just sit with our legs crossed in a very comfortable position. So here he's suggesting that when we do puja, we should use either Padmasana or we should use Swastikasana. Exactly, let's see if there's anything else stated about that. We can, it does actually mention about Padmasana and Swastikasana and how they're performed in the purport. Okay, so but I think this is a detail. Of course, there are many details here, and some of them are not strictly followed by people, so we don't see that everybody necessarily follows these details of the exact asanas of how you have to sit. So continuing on, text number 19 says, a worshipper of Sri Krishna should sit firmly facing the east during the day and facing the north during the night. If he is in the temple, he should face the deity. So this is very, very useful information, because we understand that if we go into a temple, if we enter through the east door and the deity is facing the east, then or if the deity is facing the east and we enter it through the east door, the east gate, right, then we'll be facing west. So normally the most auspicious directions for rituals to sit facing is, and you'll see many times in prayogas to different in procedures of different rituals, you'll see many times that it mentions pradware or uttaradware. It'll say either face east or face north. And the reason for that is these are the two most auspicious directions to face. East facing, because the sun comes up in the east, and the sun is the embodiment of Surya Narayana, and therefore we should face Surya Narayana. Okay. And the north, because the sun goes to the north and then goes, the sun, when the sun travels in the north, that's considered to be more auspicious. When the sun travels in the south, that's considered to be less auspicious. So anyway, east then north is second, like that. Facing south is not considered good because it's considered to be the name of the southern direction in Sanskrit is Yame or Yama. So it means the direction of hell, or the direction of Yamaraj, the god of rules, the god of chastising the dead, you know. So and west is also not good because we have our back to the sun. So that's not good. Okay, so east. So during the day, one should face east, and then during the night, he shouldn't face west, but he should face north. And then if he's doing some ritual, right? Now, if he's in a temple, right, the sun is not as important in that scheme of things in the temple as the deity. The deity is Surya Narayana also. The deity is Krishna. The deity is God. So we have to face Krishna. So whichever, like for instance in Sri Rangam, the deity happens to be facing south. So that means we should face the deity, we should be facing north. But if we're in another temple where the deity is facing east, which is more normal, more usual, then we would be facing the deity. That means we would be facing west. Normally we don't face west. If we're in some yagshal, or if we're in some other situation, some other ritual situation. So east in the day, north at night, right? Even in Sandhya Vandana, we face east in the morning, north in noon, or sometimes also east at noon too, but north at noon, and then north at night for doing archavana. But when we offer argya to the sun, we have to turn and face west for that because the sun is in the west. But east and north are also important directions for Sandhya Vandana. So but then this is all superseded if he's in a temple or if he's in front of a deity. Even if you're doing Sandhya in front of a deity, you have to face the deity. You can't have your back to the deity and think that it's an auspicious direction, and therefore I have to face some other. No, you have to be respectful to the deity, and you have to face the deity. So we're gonna leave it there, and we'll pick it up tomorrow. Namaskaram. Namaskaram.